Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome to a very instructive game that I think could be useful in your home preparation while playing d4. Welcome to an amazing gameplay by Stockfish 17 against another top engine Seer in an amazing Makagonov variation of the King's Indian defense. And then Makagonov variation I think is really one of the best ways how to beat the King's Indian defense. The Makagonov variation has, I think, first of all, very nice positional ideas in which black cannot go, I think, into this orthodox ideas of the King's Indian defense where black is not having this common attacking idea on the king side. So that's why I really love also the Makagonov variation, and when Stockfish is playing it, it's of course a different method. It's of course something else. Again, Stockfish will show us here first great opening theory, but then again spectacular middle game idea. So let's dive now into the game with the white pieces. The fish open with the move d4. Seer's response was knight to f6, c4 g6, knight to c3, bishop to g7, e4 d6. We have now reached the King's Indian defense. So we have now the normal variation so far, and now comes the Makagonov variation here by white, here with this prophylactic idea with the move h3, which is not allowing in some lines, of course, to play black to play the move bishop to g4, or in some lines knight to g4, because in some lines, of course, you want to play then bishop to e3. We have now casting bishop to e3, knight from b to d7. Black is preparing c5 or e5 moves here, and Stockfish continues now with the normal bishop to e2. e5, we have d5, immediately getting some spaces here in the center of the board, and now knight to e8. And here Seer is immediately preparing this common King's Indian idea, this common flank attack with the move f5. But Stockfish plays now a very interesting sideline, the move g4. And in chess history, only f5 has been played. So in chess history, the engine doesn't like this move that has been previously played so often in chess history, because after f5, here g takes f5, g takes f5, e takes f5, we just continue to take all of this pawns now in the center of the board, and the rook to f5. I think this is the position that the King's Indian defense player doesn't want to get, because the king is too open now. There's simply too much space here in front of black's king, and white can then easily play something like queen to c2, bishop to d3, maybe even queenside casting, knight to f3, knight to h4 maybe. So rook to g1 I think also is a cool method. So what the King's Indian defense player wants to get is a static position where he plays f5 and then f4 when he continues to push here and still keeps somehow the files locked here in front of the king. But after move f5 early here, after move g4 by Stockfish, if you play f5 too early, then the position is exploding too much in front of black's king. So that's why after move g4, Seer tried a different idea how to crack this pawn chain, the space advantage that white built here, and Stockfish continues now with h4 anyway. And this becomes now really an interesting line where Stockfish is actually attacking the king side, is waiting now again black to make a move, and after c takes d5, now comes really, I would say again, an interesting moment of this game. Stockfish continues now with a theoretical novelty with queen to d5. I've analyzed now also the lead chess database. In lead chess databases, something else has been played, c takes d5 or e takes d5. Stockfish here played queen to d5, and Stockfish is saying here you have now a weakness here on d6, like maybe in the, if you're familiar maybe with the knight of Sicilian, it's a similar pawn structure now, this d6 e5 structure where black is kept with an d5 weakness, but also now with the d6 backward pawn. And it's very hard now to defend this pawn, because you want later of course to play somewhere with your knight, you want to include it of course into the attack, but if you move the knight of course then the d6 pawn could be weak. But here knight to f6 played by Seer, a different approach, trying of course to attack the queen and hitting also the pawn here. Stockfish protects it. Now we have bishop to e6, and now Stockfish continues now with h5 anyway. And I wanted to show you how dangerous already this attack is, because if you try something like rook to c8, then also g5 could be working here. So even if you attack maybe here the c4 weakness, white is much faster on the attack. And then after something like knight to d7, we can play b3. For instance, you try knight to c5, then knight to f3. You can maybe try something like this. But I think in the next couple of moves, the position is collapsing. Knight to d5, for instance, could happen. The queen could be endangered. White and black don't have to play, of course, the game like this, but I would say this attack on this side of the board is so advanced that black is having a tough time to defend. It will play maybe then afterwards queen to c2, maybe in some lines queen side calcing. Maybe if you try, I don't know, to push here the position on the queen side, then you play h6, for instance, b4, queen to b4, knight to d5. I've just analyzed one line at home, which of course doesn't have to be necessarily played by both sides, but in any of these lines, I think white has too much space. White has really a beautiful advantage. So that's why here from h5, Seer tried somehow to stop the progress of the pawns by playing g takes h5. Stockfish continues with g takes h5, h6 now by Seer, and now a4. Now suddenly Stockfish is attacking also the queen side because of this beautiful c4 e4 structure and the queen on d1 and also the knight on c3. There's no way that black is going to break somehow in the center of the board with potential d5 move. This is impossible. And also we have seen if you play too early f5, then your king gets too much exposed. So that's why Stockfish can afford himself here even to play sort of a double flank attack. First the king side attack and now also the queen side attack. Rook to c8, queen to d2. First of all, we had an attack here by Seer, but Stockfish continues now with the counter attack against the pawn on h6, king to h7, b3, a6, and now of course a5, not allowing any progress by black here on this side of the board. Stockfish neutralized now both sides, has, as we mentioned, the space advantage and has now a very dominant game all over the board. Black has a tough time now to find good squares for the pieces. So Seer continues with knight to d7. Again, I'm pointing out this knight is stuck here really on e8. It's always protecting this weakness on d6. Stockfish continues with bishop to d3, knight to c5, hitting now the pawn. We have now protection by the pawn, but keeping, of course, an eye here against the king on h7. If something clears, of course, then the king could be in danger. b5 here by Seer. And the issue here for white is that you cannot take the pawn like this. C takes b5 would not be a good move. A takes b5, knight to b5 leads now into this complication. Knight to b3, look at this. We have now the pawn that's lost on b3. The position is about equal, but now with the king in the center, I would say not a good position anymore here for white. So here after move b5, that's why a takes b6 en passant here by Stockfish, queen to b6, and now knight to a4, queen to b8, knight to c5. We have now d takes c5, and okay, finally Seer got rid of this d6 weakness, but now there is a new I would say completely weak square in the position, and it's of course the d5 square. Now after knight to e2, Stockfish will advance the knight on c3, and then we'll hit simply the d5 weakness. We have now knight to f6. Finally this knight is getting back into the game, and now comes a very nice moment of the game. I myself would play immediately the move knight to c3 without thinking about it too much, and then go for the d5 score, or maybe, I don't know, maybe to play first of all move f3, maybe not allowing to get this g4 move. Knight to g4 would be very dangerous, but Stockfish continues now with a very cool plan with to move queen to c3. Stockfish is announcing the possibility of f3, but keeps here also an eye on dark squares. That's now the huge problem here for black. Here Stockfish is trying to build sort of a battery with the queen on b2, maybe with the bishop on c3, and hit somehow this diagonal, maybe also to later advance somehow the pawn on f4. And actually with the move queen to c3, believe me or not, Stockfish is even here preparing queenside casting, which is really crazy. I wasn't really sure where Stockfish is going to secure the king. Maybe in some lines I've expected Stockfish to play maybe the move king to f1, if the position maybe is searching for it. So very interesting ideas. I'm not sure how many of us would even consider this move queen to c3. Seems so strange to play such a move, and I would say this is a typical AI move. This is a typical top engine move, which a human I think would not consider. I think the more natural idea would be then to play f3, knight to c3, and then maybe hit somehow here the center with move knight to d5. But queen to c3 leads now to this line, king to h8. Stockfish continues now with rook to g1, and see slowly but surely there is enormous pressure now on dark squares, not maybe immediately, but indirectly, if something clears, I think the position on dark squares could collapse. Here, really a very interesting choice. Queen to c3 keeps also the queen occupied here on b8. Very amazing stuff so far by Stockfish 17. Rook to g8. Seer competes now on the g file. We have now bishop to g4. Stockfish drops back, and now I've again searched for opportunities what black should do here in this position. Let's see options. If you try here bishop to e2, this wasn't played in the game. It seems tempting because then you can maybe try knight to h5, but then rook to h1 is so dangerous. The problem is now, look at this heavy artillery. This is a perfect attack. If you try even something like, I don't know, knight to f4, bishop to f4, e takes f4, then rook to, sorry, I moved this too much here, sorry about that. Then here rook to h6 is a beautiful checkmate sequence. So you see this line is not working here for black, so that's why you could maybe try immediately to play bishop to h5 to somehow take out this pawn in a different way, but then knight to g3 again opens the files too much again with queenside castling. Rook to h1 is going to happen again. Simply enormous pressure through the g file, through the gh file. So this attack is, I think, unstoppable here for black. So that's why for bishop to b2, bishop to d2, rook from c to d8, f3 by the fish, bishop to h3, rook to g3, bishop to e6, and now finally queenside castling. So in move 31, Stockfish finally castled, managed to get this position where again we should notice that white has the better spaces here. White has a better activity. White has obviously cool targets here to attack, especially the position around the square h6 and also around the square e5 could collapse. But black is of course relying, if something clears, then maybe this diagonal could be useful in a potential attack here also by black. But here knight to h5 has been played by Seer. We have said that this could be very dangerous because then you get here the attack for the h file. After rook to g2, what should you do? If you try again knight to f4, let's repeat again, then knight to f4, e takes f4, and then you play this idea rook to h1. You can even sacrifice the queen, but rook to h6 would be then a beautiful checkmate. So even if you try here, maybe instead of bishop takes c3 to play rook to d4 to somehow keep the files locked here and also keep a cemented position, then queen to a1 with the preparation to play bishop to c3 is then also very dangerous. Look at this, we can even trade off here bishop to c3, and I think the game is again here over for black. You could maybe compete with bishop to g7, but now you push it to the limit here. Then you simply attack the dark squares. I don't know, b4 is an option. I don't want to dive now too deep into this lines, but the position is cracking, simply is opening up here on dark squares for sure. So this is not working. So after rook to g2, that's why bishop to f6, Seer gets all these potential sacrifices around the square g7, and Stockfish continues now with rook to h2. We have now rook takes d2. Sort of a desperate try, I would say, here by Seer, because there's not so much that can be done. Again, if you try to somehow keep the position blocked, then rook to h6, you're trying something like this, knight to f4, king to h6, knight takes e6 is also a beautiful line. So again, I would say completely winning position. So after rook to d2, that Seer played, Stockfish took with rook takes d2. Bishop to g5, of course, doesn't make sense because the knight is hanging, so that's why rook to g5 had to be played here by Seer. And now Stockfish continues with queen to a5, the line that we have seen also previously, just trying somehow to deliver some dangerous checks, maybe on the 8th rank, to attack something on the 7th rank. But now the queen gets, of course, further activated. We have now queen to f8, rook to d1, knight to f4, knight takes f4, e takes f4, and you see now Seer's plan was to sacrifice the rook for the exchange and then to open somehow this diagonal for the queen and bishop battery, but it's too slow. Stockfish found here a beautiful idea how to at least stop this attack for a while. Stockfish plays now the amazing e5. This is the way to go. The problem is now you cannot take with bishop here on e5, then rook to d8 is obviously winning the game immediately. So that's why rook to e5 had to be played. And you see now the rook is at least for a while standing in the way of its own bishop. Stockfish uses this moment and activates now the pieces further on the g and h file here. Rook to g5. We have now rook takes g5. Bishop to g5 has to be played. Now again the bishop gets deflected from this diagonal, which is very important. At least there's no attacking idea here. So Stockfish with his active play managed to somehow to defend the position on dark squares. We have now queen to c7, trying to play queen to e5, king to g8, and now bishop to e4. Good centralizing move here by Stockfish 17. We have here now a5. If you try bishop to f6 to keep here the battery somehow on dark squares, then king to c2, bishop to h8 can be played. But now again with this idea, rook to d8 is then a huge threat. Again, there is a huge tactical problem now for black. So that's why for bishop to e4, a5 here by Seer. Stockfish takes it, says thank you. We have now queen to e7, and now again an improvement of the king. King to c2, king to d6, rook to d2, not allowing of course the queen to sneak here on d4. If that happens, then it could be dangerous when the queen comes maybe on d4, the bishop on f6. So again, Stockfish is battling against this potential batteries on dark squares. We have now queen to e7, rook to d1, king to g7, and now queen to a1 check, queen to f6, and Stockfish says thank you. Now had it enough. Now it's time to trade off everything and simply going into the fully endgame stage. King to g7, king to d2. Stockfish activates now the rook. We have now bishop to c8, and now bishop to f5, going for the further trade of pieces. Of course, Seer has to stay with the bishops on the board. King to e2, bishop to g5, rook to h1, searching for new opportunities for the rook, bishop to c6, and now the rook gets of course activated on this side of the board. We have now king to e5, rook to a7. Great move here by Stockfish, which is again not allowing this king to get closer, because if you try here king to d4, look at this. Many of us, I think, would play this move. Then a beautiful idea is here a move bishop to d7. Look at this. The bishop has to be now traded off because you don't have any good squares. You have to give trade off. That's the issue here. And then again, after something like king to c3, you can go into this line. But then with king to d3, this pawn is protected. In one moment, you'll have to step back from the b file, and now the king gets activated, and this should be completely winning endgame here for white. So even if you try here king to f6, then obviously rook to a6 pins now the bishop to the king. So that's why for rook to a7, king to d6, Seer cannot of course include now the king into the game. We have seen now these problems. After king to d6, rook to f7, now this pawn is taken. We have now attacked by the bishop, but now bishop to g4, and bishop to d7 obviously is not working because of rook to d5. So that's why bishop to a8, Stockfish attacks now the piece, goes also for this one, pins now everything here on the 6th rank, and now grabs another pawn. Really the position is now collapsing here for black. Bishop to e8, rook to h7. Now after a couple more moves, Stockfish centralizes again the piece, goes simply closer, plays now beautiful b4 move, c takes b4, c5. Now the king is finally threatened to be deflected here from the defense of the bishop, and now c6 here by the fish, simply pushing the pawn further. We have now c7, bishop to b5, king to c2, bishop to a6, and now Stockfish gets the king closer, delivers a check, picks up now the piece, and now obviously it's game over with the whole rook up. Here after a couple more moves, it was game over here for Seer. But okay, the engines had to play till the end. Stockfish activated now simply the king, delivered a couple of checks, and played now here this sequence, and we have reached now this position in which Stockfish in move 85 delivered a beautiful checkmate with a nice king and rook activity. So amazing game, I would say. Interesting stuff in the Makagonov variation of the kings in the defense. We have seen this first kingside attack, then queenside attack. That was possible because Stockfish gained the spaces in the center of the board. Then really huge, I would say, interesting line going for this d6 weakness when Stockfish traded off in a different way. Here, let's go back to this very interesting idea with queen to d5, where we go for the d6 pawn. Then we have seen kingside flank attack, and then this a4 idea, b3, and then afterwards it was time to even queenside castling, and then we have seen how Stockfish exposed somehow the dark square problems in black's position. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I think it was really cool game here by Stockfish against the popular kings in the defense. If you want to see some other beautiful games, check out our Come to Chess Games Play by Computer series. I'm pointing out here on this playlist on the computer chess games, we have more than 700 games now. I'm really proud of my series, more than 700 really epic, sharp, tactical games here on my YouTube chess channel. You can, of course, check them all out. Here's the link of the playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? chess is the best, of course.